In today's episode, we sit down with Tiffany Sumner, an autism mom whose son Ford has profound level 3 autism.
Tiffany shares what life was like before her son's diagnosis, during diagnosis, and after. She goes over what life was like when her son Ford was abusive to her and her daughter, and then her husband who had took his life during COVID, and into rehoming him.
This episode is raw, real, and vulnerable, and one that every parent should listen to. Here is Tiffany.
We know this is not an easy conversation, and thank you for trusting us with Ford's story. When Ford was first born, what did those first few months look like?
Ford was born completely healthy and normal. He hit every milestone. He showed no signs of any kind of struggle or issue. It wasn't until he was 2 years old that he showed significant delays.
Can you share with us what some of those first moments were with Ford when you started to feel like something shifted, something was off?
We actually thought he was deaf because we were making noises one night and he had no reaction to them. So we started throwing pots and pans down because we're like, he's got to have a reaction to this. And he didn't even, he didn't move. He's completely numb to any of the noises. So that's when we're like, we need to take him to a doctor. And at the time we were seeing Dr. Sears, who's known in the autism community. And he's like, your son's an anomaly. He hits all these milestones, but then he's showing significant delay in speech. And that's kind of when it all started. At that point, we went to a neurologist. And that's...
Yeah. At this point, were you going to your regular well visits at the pediatrician? Were you keeping up with pokes, with all the things? Was Ford up to date on everything?
I did not immunize Ford because my daughter had a significant reaction to vaccines and actually delayed her significantly. Mm-hmm. We have a little bit of leeway with IEPs. And at the time we had, the doctors had written, we had the ability, the exemptions, exactly. So something in my gut just told me you can't vaccinate Ford. And so I just stuck with it. And at that time, we hit every well visit. Everything was healthy. And it was just at that 2-year mark that everything kind of started to fall apart.
I always feel like when we talk about this, when you first have kids, especially that first baby, you're looking at every milestone. And Are you doing this? Are you making eye contact? Are you lining up your toys? Are you walking on your toes? And you're thinking of all these things of, okay, my child doesn't have autism. Were you checking for those things, or did you even think of checking for those?
Oh, I check all the time. And I actually, to this day, I have moms messaging me paranoid, oh, my child's not doing this or that. But he didn't show any of those signs. So there wasn't really an initial worry or concern. It was the speech, the delayed speech, which is a huge significant sign in autism. Although you did talk about other things like their stimming, their sensory processing disorder, intellectual disability follows in line too with autism. So yeah, the speech was the main issue that we were identifying.
So I feel like so many people think about autism linked with, jabs, we'll call them. And knowing that he didn't have any, that for me is a very big awakening of okay, then what was this? Mm-hmm. People say autism is hereditary or autism. They don't know. So what do you think that his autism came from?
So I feel there's 4 areas. I do feel vaccines play a part because everyone's genetic makeup is different. And I've had so many, introductions to families that have children who have vaccine damage and their child changed right after vaccinations. So I feel vaccinations are definitely one. Environmental, and the air, what you put in your body, and genetics, and just those couple are pretty much, in my opinion, the main thing. And mine, I have no idea, although I think we were discussing this before. There's a huge lawsuit right now with baby food companies because they're finding high levels of heavy mercury and heavy metals. And so heavy metals play a huge part in autism too. And so detoxing is a lot of, what a lot of parents have done with their kids, and diet and then therapy. So what's going on right now is I was approached by a couple law firms about this big lawsuit going on. And I was on the Ellen DeGeneres show for Mother's Day when I was pregnant with Ford. And she gave me and like all the guests on the show like tons of gifts, right?
I feel like as moms, even before moms, like you always
That
remember
was the show
that
you wanted
episode.
to, that episode you wanted to be on.
Because it's like a huge sweepstakes.
Yeah,
and
it
everybody's
was.
it's crazy.
And like, yeah, it was wild. And so I don't want to say which brand it is, but one of the brands that was a sponsorship with the show gave the participants a year's worth of organic baby food. And I was all about organic, clean. I mean, I wasn't able to breastfeed, but I went as far as like looking into goat milk, like looking into every other healthy alternative that didn't have chemicals in it, right? Mm-hmm. So basically what's going on now is they're trying to identify a lot of families whose kids ate certain brands. There's a couple different brands involved. And then at what point they were showing signs of autism, and then if that played a part. I'm not going to say yes or no.
Yeah,
but
well, okay, we'll say allegedly for everything that we're saying going forward. But I feel like when you're looking at the age, especially for Ford in his case, like that 2 years old, it's like you've introduced foods to him for now a year and a half, and it's all of a sudden that light bulb. And we all know what happens when, any heavy metals come into the brain and that brain barrier, and what happens when that is set off and blocked. And clearly you've seen it firsthand.
Yeah.
So I feel like people look at autism and they celebrate it. They think quirky behavior. They think, high functioning. Can you tell us in your eyes what high profound autism level 3 looks like?
So level 3 is the most significant level of autism, where you have no speech, you have no daily living skills, you're going to be needing help for the rest of your life, you have intellectual disability, and it's so significantly different from the other side of the spectrum. So there was like a big political debate, I think, when RFK made a statement, and everyone that had children that was high functioning were very offended because he was talking about the significant, the children who have the most significant, problems. And so my son is nonverbal level 3. He's probably one of the worst some of the doctors have seen, and we're still trying to understand like what happened. But as far as this, it's called the spectrum, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm very respectful of everyone and their kids because every story is different, right? But I think that they have romanticized this idea of autism, and now celebrities are using it on their platform saying, oh, I was diagnosed with autism. And it's kind of offensive because the real story and life day to day of what I went through with my son is so mortifying, and it's like any parent's worst nightmare. And so when parents are glorifying it on the internet and they're showing their children, I'm like, oh my gosh, you can actually take your children into a restaurant. I can't even take my child barely to a park. And so it's very hurtful. I try not to take it too, sensitively, but my story is so unique, mm-hmm. and we'll probably get into the details, but my son suffers every day. And it's not like cancer where there's a cure or you cross over. You live this life every single day, and it's just a very sad life. And we do the best we can with what we have, but not having the ability to speak and getting frustrated, and you can't regulate yourself. Mm-hmm. So that's where the physical violence comes in, which I have permanent injuries from. Some of my son's caretakers, we've all been hospitalized. So he started at age 8 where he started to get really violent. And then we had to move him to a group home because he was strangling me while I was driving. And the injuries were so bad on my body that I just couldn't sustain it. And I'm all alone as a single mom with my teenage daughter. So, and their father passed away during COVID. So I was left to kind of deal with like
All by
trauma
yourself.
every day. Yeah.
When did Ford get his official diagnosis?
So he got it right before his second birthday. And that's pretty much around the time that a lot of people get diagnoses for their kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like it's hard for people to even imagine how hard and scary your life with Ford really is. You've been so open sharing on Instagram, but can you share what some of those really dangerous or scary moments actually look like for you?
Well, let's see. Like when it got really bad, he had like 50 holes in the drywall, broken televisions, broken coffee tables. He broke every, like he shattered every window. He was shattering the car windows. His injury to himself, giving himself concussions. We had to have 2 surgeries to remove blood from the impact of onto his ear and his face. So yeah, significant destruction.
And is this like, does something trigger him to act like this? Or is it just like he can't regulate and just, when you wake up in the morning, like this is how the day's going to start?
So I would say regulation is one. I denied access and not having the capability to communicate. We have an AAC device, but it only goes so far when you have intellectual disability and you can't process certain things on how to communicate.
Okay, I know this question may seem hard, but I feel like I'm thinking of myself as a mother. How do you love a child that hurts you and hurts your other child?
That's a really hard question. So I'm a Christian, and faith is the only thing that has gotten me through this. And so I feel like this is a form of ministry. And I think like my story is I was put here to be this, not just a mom, but like a pillar in the community to help show strength and try and bring other mothers together. And as far as loving my son, like I prayed for a son and God gave me a son, and I'm like, this is what I have to deal with. And I'm just doing the best I can. And, they're my kids. And I know it can be hard for a lot of parents, but I feel my heart, like, when you feel your kid's pain, right? So it's hard to be upset when you're like, I can't imagine what he's feeling right now.
My mom always says to me, you are only as happy as your saddest child. Like you feel your child's pain. You can't be happier than your saddest child because you're feeling everything that they're feeling. And until I became a mom, I had no idea what that meant. I'm like, happy, sad. And then you become a mom, you're like, oh, I totally get it. Your child's hurting, your child's suffering, your child's sad. You feel that. I just can't imagine feeling that every day.
When Ford was transferred, it's considered a crisis home. And there is barely any support in the state of California and across the nation. So that's why I'm sharing my story on my platform, is to try and get attention from lawmakers and senators. And we're trying to get more funding federally through the country so that we can provide more services. Because my situation was so dangerous, that's why they had to intercept. And I had to get attorneys. But it gets to a level where you just have no choice. Because I thought I was going to die.
I was going to say, can you take us through the moment, or was there a moment where you were like, I cannot do this anymore emotionally, physically, to keep Ford living at home and he has to go into another home?
Yeah, I remember he was put on like several 5150 holds, they're psychiatric holds, because we felt we were in such danger. And then having him strapped to a bed in the hospital, it was so traumatic. We didn't know what to do. And so I got on my knees and prayed one day, and I got a phone call 6 days later that there was an opening in a crisis home. But I just knew at that moment, I was kind of just giving myself to God and saying, like, this is like, I'm going to die. Like, whether it's a stroke or he's hurting me in the car driving, or I don't know what it is, but I mean,
something has to give.
Something has to give. And my daughter has already been through so much, losing her father, watching her brother deteriorate. I was not about to try and let her life also get ruined, because she's deserving of, everything. So
and some normalcy.
Yeah.
I was going to say, did you have conflicting feelings of relief and guilt when you put him in the home?
Absolutely. Like the relief was we could actually breathe. Like I couldn't go to a grocery store. I couldn't even leave my house. I was like a prisoner in our house because everyone quit on us. That was respite. Nobody could sustain the level of needs. And so I was trying to be a single mom to my daughter and then to my son. And that's like virtually impossible as it is, even if he wasn't autistic. So when he moved out, it was like, how do I say this? Like the silence was so loud that it really I mean, we all suffer. Me and my daughter suffered from PTSD from this whole thing. But it was just like such a significant relief. But at the same time, I felt like the worst mom because I'm actually like breaking apart the family and he's probably confused and doesn't know what's going on. He's moving to a strange home with caretakers he's never met before. I mean, I cried myself to sleep, I think, like for probably 6 months. Like it was the hardest decision I've ever had to make. Wow. So
what does that process look like of moving him into, like, are you able to communicate with him and try to kind of explain like that he's going to live somewhere? Or, like, do you move all of his,
situation?
What does that look like?
Well, the day he moved in, my whole family was involved to make sure he was loved. And so we moved all of his stuff the day before, and then we moved him in there, and we tried to just like nurture the situation, introduce him to the people, say, okay, we're gonna have like we couldn't say like we're transitioning because he still can't understand very much with his intellectual disability. We couldn't say like we're transitioning because he still can't understand very much with his intellectual disability.
Okay, let's talk about something that's been popping up everywhere lately. I'm talking mushrooms, not in your pasta, but in your wellness routine. One in particular is catching a major buzz. Amanita muscaria, the bright red mushroom with white spots. You've probably seen it in Alice in Wonderland or Mario Kart. It's legal to buy and sell in the US, except for Louisiana. And more people are turning it to as part of their wellness and holistic routines for things like relaxation, deeper sleep, and even lucid dreaming.
I am not saying I personally use it, but the surge in interest around mushrooms and plant medicine is impossible to ignore. People are looking for natural ways to unwind, reconnect, and feel good, and mushrooms like Amanita are part of that shift. That's where Minnesota Nice Ethnobotanicals comes in. They're the #1 Amanita muscaria supplier in the US, trusted by over 30,000 customers. They filled a major gap by ethically sourcing these botanicals and offering them in beautiful forms. Gummies, tinctures, extracts, you name it, they've got it.
And it doesn't stop at Amanita. They also carry blue lotus, known for centuries as a natural aphrodisiac, plus kava and kanna, and more.
If you're mushroom curious or just want to explore the natural side of things, go to www.mniceethno.com/campchaos and use code campchaos for 22% off your order. That's mniceethno.com/campchaos, code campchaos. Explore, unwind, and support your body naturally. Now back to the show.
Can he understand when you're telling him, like, okay, we are going to the park? Like, does he comprehend that? Or is he like...
I think he can.
You don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. But that day, the transition went better than I thought, actually. Obviously, we have our weekly, daily struggles because he would love to come home, but it's not possible.
Does he know when you're there visiting, like, okay, I'm leaving? Like, is it hard for you to leave? Like, is he trying to come with you?
We take my stepdad. I have my dad and my stepdad, my mom. I have an incredible family, and I couldn't have gone through this without them. Every Saturday, we take him for like 2 to 3 hour drive. And so that's like his outlet because it's been too dangerous for the caretakers to drive him because he just blew out like one of the car windows. And so we take him on the drive and like get his favorite snacks and lunch. And then by the time we're done, he's like, okay, I'm ready to take a break. So that's kind of been working for us. I tried taking him out in public and it's too dangerous. And
the unknowns, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So during COVID, your husband ended his life, which no family should ever go through something like that. So first off,
I'll say ex-husband.
Ex-husband ended his life. But your partner and your partner in raising these children.
Yeah.
Can you explain what level 3 autism affected and how that affected your marriage and him?
Yeah. I will say this. He was already struggling with a mental health situation. And it got significantly worse as we were dealing with the autism within, our family unit. It wasn't the only issue, but it definitely played a part. And that's why there's a lot of divorces within autism families, because you don't have that time to nurture your marriage, and you're in a constant state of fight or flight. And so when you're, I never had nannies really. And I mean, I did to an extent with my daughter when I needed help with Ford, but certain people cannot handle the level of autism that Ford has. So it was all me. And so my former husband could not handle it at all. He could not handle it. There was absolutely no way I could leave him even with my former husband at that time. So it was 100% on me. So,
so as far as custody, it wasn't like he'd go to his house and your house.
He did until the age, until a certain point. And then it was so stressful on my former husband, and there was other variables in the mix that he was dealing with. And I said, I'm just going to take it over, because it was putting my son in a dangerous position under the care of my former husband. So yeah, it definitely affects a lot of family units.
Even just hearing your story, I just can't imagine being in your shoes and all that you've had to deal with, and your daughter and your son, and then to hear that your husband ended his life. I actually can't imagine just the stack of blocks that are coming on you and the weight. Did you blame him, or did you blame yourself when he ended his life?
I think it's easy for all of us to stop and try to do the blame game when somebody I've lost 3 people to suicide. So you stop and you wonder, is there something we could have done? What caused this? It was an internal issue he was dealing with. And I didn't take on any sense of responsibility at all. I tried to help him. And there was just, when you get to a certain mental state, because I'm also a mental health advocate, and there's only so much you can do. It's up to that person to decide, what the next step's going to be. And
well, I feel like it's a blessing that you have that knowledge and that ability, because I feel like so many moms and so many women, we just take on so much, and we take on guilt, and we take on shame, and we take on responsibility.
Yeah.
So knowing that Ford needed everything from you and such a hard time in your life.
Yeah.
How did you keep going daily with that?
Honestly, like I said before, it was faith. It was a support system. I started joining Facebook groups of other moms who were dealing with the same situation, and just talking and being involved with the community. It was a huge help. I'm involved with TACA. They're a local nonprofit organization that supports autism, and just getting out there and the more support you have, the easier it is to kind of
I feel like it's something as a mom, we share so much of our lives on social media, but I feel like something like this, it's you could easily hermit. You could easily stay home.
Yeah.
You could easily stay quiet. You could easily say, poor me, but you've done so much different than just say, woe is me and my poor life and my poor situation. You're not a victim, which, I will applaud you at that. I think I'm sitting here thinking, how are you going about this every day?
Right.
How is your why? What is waking you up in the morning of I'm going to conquer today? You walked in here and you have a light about you, and I can't imagine how I would feel, but I would just be a dark cloud is following me all the time. And you're a ray of sunshine.
You're so sweet. It's so strange how this all COVID obviously affected all of us. So the height of COVID, this is when it started, right? When Kurt passed away, and then my son declined significantly. But the only way I've really stayed positive is my daughter. And she is I'm so proud of her and what she's gone through. And I have to be present for her. But like I said before, I think I was put here to help this community. It's there's always that why. Why is my child, why is this happening? it's just like I've had X, Y, and Z happen, and there's no understanding of it. I mean, we'll know one day, but I don't have a choice but to be, you have to have a healthy mind set for the kids. And that's really hard to do. I think when my son moved out and I got that actual relief and I wasn't living in that fight or flight, gave me the ability to actually start pouring into myself too. And, stress and trauma affect you so much physically. Like you get autoimmune disease. There are so many things that can affect you with that. And so I was able to work through that to get more healthy mind and body so that I could be a more present and healthy parent to both of the kids.
Not to mention a daughter, a friend, like a functioning member of society. You're not just Ford's mom. Like you're so much more than that. So I feel like it's easy to have like resentment in these feelings, but it's like you've carried on with the rest of your life finally.
And I don't know how. I think I share so much of my story to try and give other parents confidence or just courage to get out there and share and just to not give up. Because parents give up. They're just like, I can't do it anymore. But unfortunately, the system right now is so upside down. There is barely any support across the country.
Well, I told Kendra, like you sharing your story and the way that you have so vulnerably on Instagram, like you are going to make so many changes. I told Kendra, I said she's going to be on the Today Show before we know it, because I think autism is something that all moms worry about naturally, even when you're pregnant, but we don't know what day-to-day looks like of someone with autism. That's why there's so many questions like, does my kid have it? I don't know. Maybe he's not meeting this milestone. Your son's level of autism, I feel like, is significantly not talked about enough.
Yeah.
I would love to know for you what motherhood looked like day to day when Ford was living at home versus what motherhood day to day looks like for you now.
So when you can't go out in public, so you are literally a prisoner in your own home. I could barely do like Target drive-up orders. And
do you what about like breakfast? Like we have such a routine of like, we wake up, we bring our kids down here, we feed them breakfast, they watch a show, we go to the park. Like that is not what your life looks like.
Or when he was living at home, like were you waking up in fear of what am I going to have?
Yeah. I mean, I'd have to like, and then I'm like, if I lock myself in the room, is that going to be better or worse? Because he's hurting himself so significantly. But yeah, I would do my best with a routine of breakfast and lunch and dinner. He'd either throw his food, like completely break things, or or he would eat them. It's like it's so unpredictable. And so we just did our best to try and find some normalcy, which is virtually impossible. But my daughter was forced to grow up overnight. She had to form independent skills because I could only do so much. I mean, my parents lived by.
What was the age gap?
They're 3 years apart.
Okay, wow. So she grew up real fast.
So I moved near my parents after Kurt passed away so that I could find more support. But at the same time, they're older and there's only so much they can do. So my daughter unfortunately had, get the brunt of it. Now we're trying to make up for lost time, but it's like you can't really have a routine, right? I mean, routines with autism, that's how some of them thrive, right? But with the unpredictability, you just kind of have to roll with it. Mm-hmm. And
when you were in those moments where Ford was, getting violent or losing his cool, did you start to develop skills of like how to tame that? Or were you more developing skills of like fighting for your life of just like, okay, here we go. Like I'm ready to take the brunt of this and then I'll deal with it after.
Yeah. At that point, I just was kind of releasing myself. Like it's like it gets to a point where you push so much and there's just no alternative. There are no solutions. And so at that point, I mean, I'm not an ABA therapist, but obviously I try to use what I know to help, regulate the situation and his behaviors. But it got to a point where I just kind of had to throw my hands in there. I'm like, if I get injured, I get injured. Like, I mean, I have like broken bones. I have like permanent like hematomas. I've got scars all up and down my arms from nails. And, He took a chunk out of my arm 2 weeks ago from biting my skin. So it's just, it's a whole other level. And I just really appreciate you ladies taking the time to identify and understand profound autism, because it's so overlooked, and it is the one area of the spectrum that needs the most help.
I feel like people who are in your position are too overwhelmed or too scared to talk about it. The fact that you are taking time to share what you're experiencing is like what is going to create change, because quite frankly, I didn't even realize how scary it can be to deal with a child who has profound autism like this.
It's like it's like a light switch. That's, if I can explain it. Your child's sitting there completely normal. I mean, not normal, but like calm, right?
Right.
And then in the blink of an eye, he's on top of me, biting me, pulling my hair out.
Rage, full-blown rage.
Total rage. And you're like, wow, this is not my child. And it's such, like, I have videos of him at 2, and he's happy. He's throwing the ball. He's running around the house. He's even swiffering. I'm like, he would have been like an athlete, right, if he didn't have autism. But he's going to be like 6'1" or 2 at some point. And
so
then
he's a big, strong guy.
Yeah.
So when he's hurting you, I mean, as he's gotten older, I would imagine too that,
Yeah.
you know, he's getting stronger, he's getting taller, he's getting heavier. Like for him hurting you, that just gets more intense. I mean, he's learning other skills of hurting somebody. It's not a 5-year-old hurting you. It's a 10-year-old hurting you now. It's different. I know you talked a lot about faith, which, you know, I think it's such an important pillar that all of us have. But how did you process the feelings of like guilt, resentment? Like, I mean, other than faith, like I love that you have a family, but in the morning you're waking up and you're looking at your life of like, how is this my life?
there's a lot of anger.
Because you're not a victim. It doesn't, you don't give victim mentality.
No.
There was just a lot of anger because I'd gone through so much already, and I'm like, why me? Like, why is this happening? It's just getting worse and worse and worse. And so at that point, I don't know. I just had to stop and just take a breath and understand that this is not going to get any better. It's probably just going to get worse.
Yeah.
And so I totally forgot where we were at.
That's okay.
Sorry. When I have like PTSD, so like when I get triggered, and then I like my brain is just wired differently.
Oh, I'm sure that your brain has been wired and rewired several times now.
Yeah, the fact that you can even speak about all of this so eloquently is like, I feel like we could sit here and talk to you forever. I think one of the big things that you're here for and that you're trying to do is like, there is so much change that needs to be done with this situation. This should not be all on your shoulders to deal with Ford and his level of autism.
Yeah.
What are some systems or help that you think should have been in place for your family, especially in the early stages when Ford was first diagnosed?
I think we need to increase like the wage for our caretakers because they take on such a big brunt of the work, and it's risky and it's a liability for them too. And so I think that we need more caretakers. We need more of the support within the actual family unit in the home. We need more therapies. We shouldn't have like a 2-year wait list to get into certain programs, which is completely crazy to me because the numbers of autism keep rising, but we're not keeping up with it and the system's not keeping up with it. So let's say your child's diagnosed right now. Like, guess what? In like 8 or 10 years when it gets really scary, like we're going to be in a really bad situation nationally speaking. We already are. There's only 3 crisis homes in all of California that are like their STAR. Yeah, so my son's in one of them, and they're called the STAR program. If it's not a regional center-based crisis home, there's only one that goes to minors.
Oh, you would think that there'd be like one per county.
No.
I mean,
and then
what is autism? 1 in 26 children now?
Yeah, so it's gone up like over 300% in the last decade of diagnoses.
And we're clearly not keeping up. And then obviously, like there's autism where, you know, your speech is delayed. There's different things.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are on the spectrum like we've talked about without knowing. But
profound
autism, level 3 autism, how common is that?
So 1 out of 4 will have profound.
1 out of 4?
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's according to... I think the CDC like published in 2023 like a a paper around that. So don't. I mean, allegedly, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, everything's allegedly.
Is Ford, like for someone, a child who's diagnosed with profound autism and where Ford is at now, is he on some sort of like protocol or program where they're checking in on him and kind of monitoring?
Like the state?
Yeah, like the state and how he
Somebody-
goes. And are we working on improving him or?
Yeah, so the regional center, it's through the regional center essentially. And so basically he is a 2-to-1 right now. He's 2 people at all times. He is on a number of drugs, and we are still trying to play with them to find the right fit because he's still violent. So we're just slowly increasing and trying to, he's,
manage his medicine.
yeah, but it's like we've tried 5 different antipsychotics, and it's like, how much do you have to do?
So I know you shared on your Instagram recently of that Ford was having a surgery in San Diego, I think it was. And I remember looking at your story of like looking at these doctors and these people trying to hold him down.
Yeah.
I feel like we're talking about it and you think, okay, well, he's in a center now. Obviously not. Like you're so hands-on with every single part of his care. What do you want people to understand about profound level 3 autism?
I want them to understand that there's no comparison. And I hate to compare, right? Because every story, there's a struggle. But the amount of pain that these children go through and their families is so significant, and we feel forgotten. And it's just like we have, with the limited help and support we have, it's like our whole community is forgotten. That's why I'm out there trying to talk about it and to raise more awareness, because we're going to die. Like there's mothers. I mean, Dr. Phil did a show like in the 90s, I think, and they had 3 families on stage with all children of autism. One of the interviewees was coming from prison because it got so bad. She drove out to the desert in her van and tried to go to sleep with her son with gas through the car, because it gets to a point, and there was another elderly lady on the news a couple months ago who was diagnosed with cancer, and they had no family, they had no support, and she took her son with her. And it's just, it's so devastating that families have to get pushed to that point. And so when people are talking about autism, like it's a light and bright subject, and like I said, like romanticizing it, it's so painful for me.
Yeah.
Because if they couldn't survive one day in our world.
No.
And so that's why I share the videos. They're really graphic, but I feel it's really important to do. So,
well, it's important to pull that curtain back so that people like us who have never experienced that can understand, because you can only understand so much based on, hearing things. And like I said, we're not hearing enough about profound autism, but you are a mom on a mission, and I know you'll be on Capitol Hill soon enough here talking to lawmakers and educators. But if you were there and you had a seat in front of them, what would you say to them, and what would you want them to know about the difficulties your families deal with?
Well, obviously I would share my story, but I think we need more federal funding. And I think when the federal funding comes through with the states, it falls on like the governors and the legislation and all of that. And I just feel like the dollars would be so well used if we could just get more funding financially to even raise the wage for our caretakers. And so regional center is not given enough money, and then they have to diversify and try and allocate the funds to pick families, and it's like we shouldn't be put in that position. And so we kind of fall like to our knees, and we're like, we have to do what we have to do. Advocate, like during IEPs, like whatever parent, like what we have to do to ask for the help.
How many families can the regional center help at one time? Like how many kids are in there?
I honestly don't know, but I do know that the caseloads on the case managers are so heavy at one time. Like I think my case manager was dealing with 30 kids at a time, and they're all so significant because there's not enough funding to get.
I feel like what's so crazy is like you look at what the government's spending our money on.
Yeah.
And you're like, we are suffering. We are falling to our knees. We are crying. We have suicide. We have people taking their children's lives with there's the level of how dark this has gotten.
Yeah.
Yet you guys aren't getting support.
Yeah,
or the right
absolutely.
support.
It's actually very disturbing.
So you've been extremely open and vulnerable, and we are so honored that you shared your story. Obviously, you talked a lot about faith and having your daughter. I feel like you were put on this earth and given this situation to be a voice for this. So I feel like the one thing I will tell you is like be loud. Like be as loud and obnoxious about this as you can be in sharing Ford's story, because I mean, you got our attention to the point where I told you I was at 3 a.m, like scrolling and watching. And I think I went back to like as far back as you started your Instagram. I'm like trying to track this. And yeah, I mean, and then you and I spoke over the phone, and I remember I was telling you, I'm like, oh my God, I'm in bed hiding from my child who has hand, foot, and mouth. And it's been such a hard week. And I'm like, bah, 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 like, whoa, poor me. And then I'm like, Tiffany, I'm so sorry that I'm speaking to you about this right now. When like, it really put me in check of like, wow, we are so, you humbleized me of like, I am so grateful for healthy children. And I'm just grateful that you're sharing your story, not only for awareness, but like also for moms like us that we don't suffer from this, of like, we almost have that weird, like kind of survival guilt in a way of like, we don't have to go through what you're going through. And part of me feels like guilty for saying that, but it's like, I just know that like we see you and we feel you, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah. I mean, it like, I'm so in awe of your story, and I'm just really in awe that you're sharing it and being open and vulnerable, because like Kendra said, this is so something that you would, I don't know if shame is the right word, but you just want to keep it so tight because you're like, I don't want everyone to feel how dark this can be. But you sharing this, like, I know you are going to make so many changes. And I think one of the biggest changes that you'll make is for other moms who are dealing with what exactly you're going through. And I think in our era now, this is not at all a comparison, but like even something like hand, foot, mouth, like you can go onto TikTok or Instagram now. You're like, hand, foot, mouth. Like, what mom has up with this, and what do we do?
100%.
How do I fix it?
Yeah, now you can be that for other moms who are experiencing like profound level autism. So what would you say to a mom who's like in the early stages of realizing, okay, I have a child who is diagnosed with this?
Yeah, there's definitely no roadmap to this, and every situation is different. What I did, actually, how this whole thing started was I posted a video that went viral of Ford and what was going on, and I had advocates reach out to me, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, we're going to be there to help you." And so one of my advocate that had reached out 5 years ago, we're still very close. She sits on every IEP, and that and the support systems within the autism community, whether it's a Facebook group, online, or you get involved with TACA or another local nonprofit to kind of align with parents and find that community is so important. So important for their mental health too.
So you talked about how this can affect your health. Like, not only are you worried about your child who has level 3 autism, you have to start worrying about your health and you have to be here for your daughter and for your son to take care of both of them. How do you begin to start to heal, if that's even possible?
I mean, I'm a huge proponent for therapy. I've been in talk therapy for years. I mean, I tried EMDR. There's so many things that you could do. I went through a nutritionist. I changed what I was eating too, and it just was really, really aware of what stressors were in my life externally too, and taking out any toxic people and just focusing on the good. And it's so important to do that because it affects you like externally and internally, right? Who you're around, what you're putting in your body, all of that. And so that's kind of what I started doing, is just going to therapy and taking care of my body and taking care of my, the mental health problem. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's like who you surround yourself with, like even just getting their energy. It's like, cut out anything that doesn't serve you.
Yeah. In Orange County, there's a lot of interesting energy, right?
Right. Well, you are a mom, you are an autism mom, but like really at the end of the day, you're a mom, and I can imagine you want something back from your son at the end of the day. If Ford could say one sentence to you, what would you hope it would be?
This is so hard. So this is a hard question. I'm glad we have these. Probably it's okay, or I love you. Because I've never heard him say I love you.
You just gave me chills.
I know.
Well, I feel like I could speak for him to say, it's okay. You are doing exactly what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
I mean, it is okay. If not from him, hear it from us. It is okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. And you've showed him so much love throughout his life that he is so lucky that you are his mom.
Thank you.
And he must be so proud of you for everything that you're doing to help him and to help his community.
Yeah.
That is not given enough.
Thank you.
Oh,
It's just,
yeah, it's heavy. Well, I feel like we sit here today and we talk about it for 45 minutes and,
Yeah.
you know, it's like we end this conversation and we go along with our lives and you go back to yours. And it's at the end of the day, like we are two moms that like we see you, we feel you, we wish we could help you. I mean, if nothing else, just sharing your story.
Yeah.
If people want to connect with you, follow along, tell everyone where they can find you.
on Instagram at my full name, Tiffany Sumner. And then from there, I have people tagged that they can go to, whether it's advocacy, and everyone can reach out to their local, lawmakers, senators. And I mean, it's just, it's kind of like a lost world right now. But as far as like contacting me, that's where they can find me on Instagram.
You know, while it is a lost world, I do feel like it's just the beginning of a big world that you're uncovering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it feels lost right now, but that's how you know, okay, we're about to shake something up.
Yeah.
Something has got to give.
Something has to happen. And I really hope I can my goal is to get in with RFK to get a meeting, because the ones he's had recently, they don't really have like the moms there that deal with the frontline battles. And they say that parents, especially moms, they suffer the same amount of trauma as like someone in battle.
Wow.
And so that's really hard to kind of understand.
Like somebody that's gone to war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, after you get that meeting with RFK, this seat
Yeah.
is open for you to come back and let us know everything that was said and how you're going to keep making changes.
Yes. That's
Thank
the
you
goal.
so much,
Yeah,
Tiffany.
you're welcome.
Thanks for hanging out with us. If you're loving Camp Chaos, hit that subscribe button.
Leave us a review and share it with a friend. It means the world to us.
See you next time.